So this is going to be quite triggering, but I received a comment under one of my posts on Facebook, where the individual stated, I don't want to learn. I want my CPA to do it for me. I want to delegate that task. And I thought to myself, this is why most people end up financially bonded. And so my background is audit, right? My foundation is audit. My expertise is tax. 20 plus years in audit, accounting, and tax. And part of audit is learning new processes, right? So for every employer I had or client, if I was a consultant, I had to learn the industry and the processes associated with that industry, how they record income, how they record expenses, etc., etc. And I had to back into the source from the end result, right? So if the number was $1 million on income, I had to back into all of the sales, the general ledger. If you had an expense, I needed to, take a sample, pull invoices, etc. I had to make sure it was legitimate. I had to make sure it was accurately reflected on the books. I had to make sure that the processes didn't present any conflict of interest, like the person signing the bank recs, making the bank deposits, the person performing the bank recs, right? It's a conflict of interest to give somebody so much power over a process that impacts financials under which people rely on, right? Investors, etc. And so in that, I learned how to do a lot of things myself, right? I applied it in my real life. So I'll give an example. When I was living in New Jersey, I lived in a nice neighborhood in Montclair, and I had just purchased, and the property taxes had doubled within a year. And I decided I'm not staying here because this is not like an asset that's going to give me any benefit. So the property taxes kind of doubles, and I immediately knew I had to sell. But because I had only owned the property for just a year, I knew that if I hired a broker, I would have to pay the broker's commission, etc., and it would just eat into my little bit of tiny, almost non-equity. And so I learned how to list it myself for sale by owner. I found an online MLS agency. I paid like $3.95 or something like that to have access, and I took my own pictures and staged and made sure in the listing I put no brokers. And I found a couple who had no broker. They came for an open house. I scheduled the open houses, all that good stuff, and we ended up closing, right? I just needed my attorney. And so that not only saved me a broker's fee, but I also ended up getting some gain out of it, right? I got back all my down payment plus some more for the sales price. And so I thought to myself, in this situation where somebody wants something done for them, this is why you lose on a lot of things in life financially, because you always want somebody else to do it, right? I'm trained to find out how to do something myself. I'm trained to be a self-starter. I'm trained to investigate. I'm trained to verify. I'm trained to follow the paper trail, right? And this is why I am financially free, right? I also execute. And so for people who are always saying, do it for me, you're going to be in trouble, particularly when it comes to taxes. Many of you think taxes operate in a vacuum, and it doesn't, right? Your CPA is not going to necessarily be a tax advisor. It is like your general practitioner, right? You go to your doctor, but then your doctor refers you to a specialist, right? Ear, nose, and throat, eye doctor, whatever have you. They're all doctors, but they have specialties. A CPA is the same thing. It's a certified public accountant, but that doesn't necessarily mean they understand tax. And I cannot tell you how many times a student has come to me and said, I think my CPA input something wrong. I had a recent student say, how come my losses as a real estate professional are not offsetting all of my income from this year? I have loss that's carried forward. And I looked at the file, looked at the return, although I usually don't review another preparer's work, and I saw that the preparer entered in bonus depreciation at Section 179, which was wrong, right? So they had to amend the return and do it right so that they can carry forward the losses and offset all their income. I had another student tell me her CPA didn't know what bonus depreciation was and how to input cost segregation information. Again, the CPA is not necessarily your tax person, and most importantly, my own examiner. I was audited in 2024 for 2022. She did not know what a cost segregation study was. I had to teach her. She's a CPA. She just happened to be working for the IRS in small business self-employed, right? So CPA does not mean all-knowing in tax. It just doesn't. Even if your CPA is a tax advisor, you probably didn't hire them for that, and they don't care. You come to them during filing season, which is tax season is January 1 to 12/31. They don't care. You're coming to them when they have 1,000 other returns to prepare. They don't care. They're not going to tell you anything. 2, they know that you don't have complete documentation, right? So for example, when you are in a business and you have, a lot of expenses, many of you don't keep proper documentation. You have eight different credit cards that you're just swiping, and your CPA is like, I'm not going to represent you in an audit, so I'm not comfortable with this, so I'm not going to put it in there, right? Or they'll make you sign the return, and they won't sign it. They'll just say they prepared it, and that you certify all this information is true to the best of your knowledge, yada, yada, yada. The burden of proof is always on you. So that's why a lot of you will always be behind. You will always, even when you're trying to climb out of debt or try to grow your business, you will always be behind because you don't understand that strategy and planning is an all-year process. It is not just hiring somebody to do it for you. You can hire a bookkeeper, but they're not going to tell you, hey, you may want to, spend some more money because you have a tax liability. No, they're just keeping books for you. So the do-it-yourself community, let me roll up my window. The do-it-yourself community, you're always going to be behind. As a business owner, you don't have the privilege of being, say, Grant Cardone and having a tax advisor follow you around all day, right? Or be, speed dial. You just don't. You can't afford it, and not only that, you should still know certain things when it comes to taxes and your business because they don't operate exclusively of each. They go hand in hand. They're parallel. So, I just wanted to address that. Just do it for me. You don't have that privilege. 1, you don't have the money. 2, you don't have the privilege because your preparer, even if they do know tax, they know that you don't have the proper documentation for real estate professional status. For example, you have to have over 750 hours. They're not going to certify that there's over 500 hours that are material, and there's no travel time included, and they're not going to go through that. That's your job during the year. They can't follow you around to Home Depot and say, yes, log these hours. That's not their job. So you are going to lose. Okay? They're not going to tell you, hey, you're using your car for business, you might want to start documenting your mileage. Documentation is where most business owners fail. You're losing out on deductions because you don't keep proper books and records. You're losing out on money because you don't strategize and plan. You don't know when to implement. Your CPA is a certified public accountant. A lot of times they're just preparers. They're not tax savvy. I've corrected many of your returns. So for those of you who just don't want to take the time to learn, I don't feel like it, I want to spend time in my business, I don't have time, you will be making time to work 2 and 3 jobs or to work harder in your business to never catch up. And that's another thing I don't believe. I don't have time. You do have time. A lot of you spend your days scrolling TikTok, IG, Facebook, whatever have you. You have time. You just don't want to dedicate time. Even in my mastermind, I constantly have to tell my students, I can see your progress on the back end, and you didn't open up the course. There's 0% progress. You just want a quick answer, and it's not how it works. You might as well stay part of the paycheck to paycheck crew. Nobody wants to be, burping you and wiping you through this process for your own good. You have to be an active and material participant. And if that's not what you want, don't burden your professionals. Just don't. Don't burden your coaches, your guide, your mentors, those who are guiding you. If you don't want to do the work, don't do the work. Just pay the money, pay your taxes, be part of the individuals that pay 17 trillion or 18 trillion more than business owners. Okay? It takes work. Most of you are grassroots. You're from the ground up like myself. You have to be involved. You don't have the luxury that others who grow to a space, because a lot of times people have to grow to a space where they can delegate. And even then, they likely had to learn certain things so that they can kind of run behind their financial professionals and advisors to say, hey, did you do X, Y, and Z? Did this, and that? I don't know when you all will learn from entertainers, in the music industry and beyond, who, accountants stole money from them, or they're ending up in debt because the accountants didn't pay the taxes. They just cut the check to themselves, whatever have you. If you don't want to do the work and you want somebody to do it for you, and you don't feel like learning, time, then don't complain. Stay where you are and don't complain.